not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
All right, I know Kyle is fired up here. We said let's just hit record and see what happens. We'll get to a random Wolf of the Week with producer Ross, but to start the extravaganza here today on Flagrant Howls, a shout out to Brixworth over in the North Loop. There's also the OG location in Burnsville, but just a couple blocks away from Target Center. Great for pre-gaming, post-gaming, away games too, because they got a bunch of TVs. The Nasreed Signature Hazy IPA, some of the most dry rub wings you're going to find, and Detroit-style pizza. And, if, the Wolves don't show up until 6 minutes left in the first quarter, you could stay a little longer at Brixworth and walk in and maybe even still be standing and waiting for them to score their first basket. Brixworth in the North Loop, super close to Target Center, very walkable. I feel bad for the fans in attendance last night that had to stand for 20 minutes of real time, Kyle, waiting for the Wolves to score their first point. Their feet, their ankles, their knees must be very stressed today.
Their hips? I don't know if Glenn was there or not, but I don't know how people feel about this, but I just think they should get rid of that. I don't know any other fan base other than maybe the Clippers who have the wall that are doing that, but I was a couple minutes late because it was an ESPN game, so I couldn't league pass it and watch it from the beginning, but I saw it was 8-0. I was like, I better get to my TV. And then there was a commercial break because there was a timeout. The coach called one. And then I was like, oh my God. And then it comes back to play and the fans are still standing. So I felt miserable for them. They were the only ones that showed up in a cold winter night, which turned out to be, and I think I texted you this, I was like, this is probably going to be a tight game down the stretch. That's how those games work. But had they have just, figured it out for the first 6 minutes, they probably coast to a victory. And they're probably 3 or 4 possessions away from being on a 7-game winning streak in the 5 seed in the West. But whether it be basketball IQ, which I think is something that is percolating, or just a lack of maturity, they just, for whatever reason, from top to bottom, from the person who puts the jerseys in the locker to the people who own the team right now, just a lot of dysfunction for your Minnesota Timberwolves.
Okay, can we, because we both have a lot that we want to rant about off the game last night. And I'm the idiot that went on yesterday's version of Flagrant Howls. And granted, we do call it once a week Hottest Wolves Takes. And I said, for my Hottest Wolves Take, the Wolves have turned a corner. Look at their record since the Sacramento game, 51 win pace, 4-1 since the lineup change. And literally 6 hours later, they don't score a point until the 6th. So I look like an idiot. But let's park the angst from last night. It is a Reckless Speculation Thursday across Score North podcast.
Reckless Speculation.
Can I entertain you to start the show with this ESPN.com article that's titled 5 Offers That Would Change the NBA Title Race?
Yeah, let's get it.
And you can mock this. Maybe you're ready to full-on agree to this trade. I don't know how you're going to react exactly, but I want to throw it at you, Kyle, and see what your visceral reaction is. Okay. So the Timberwolves, a 3-team trade here. There's 5 trades listed. There's a Jimmy Butler trade in there, but this is the one trade that involves the Timberwolves, with the deadline now, 3 weeks away? So the Wolves would get Chicago Bulls point guard, combo guard, scoring guard, Coby White. They would get John Collins, the 5-year rumors swirling around. I feel like John Collins to the Wolves has been talked about, at least in mock trades and the trade machine, since maybe his 3rd year with the Hawks. But the Wolves would get Coby White and John Collins. They would send out Julius Randle to the Bulls and Jaden McDaniels to Utah. And then Jordan Clarkson would wind up getting routed to the Bulls, Lonzo Ball to the Jazz. And the write-up is the Julius Randle experiment has not worked in Minnesota. I'm gonna side street this. I don't think he was ever the end destination. So to say it hasn't worked, I don't know that they made the trade and were oh, this is gonna work. I think it was always a conduit to something else. But and 2 basketball reasons indicate why. Randle and Anthony Edwards both like to operate on ball as primary offensive options. Neither one are strong enough ball handlers to consistently create offense against set defenses. We've seen all lack of synergy, all that stuff. In short, the Timberwolves need their big man scorer to be more of a finisher than an initiator, and they need a lead guard capable of consistently creating team offense while letting Anthony Edwards operate more as a scorer off ball, thus this trade. John Collins, less of a ball hoggy initiator, more of a finisher, can shoot threes, can score from inside. There's more on this write-up, but if the Wolves were to ship out Julius Randle and Jaden McDaniels for Coby White and John Collins, your thoughts?
Horrendous trade. What are we doing? What is the difference between John Collins picking up his player option this summer and Julius Randle?
Yeah, I should mention that. John Collins and Coby White both have 1 year left after this. The Collins year is a player option, just like Julius Randle's player option. So that's an important.
And I already know that just my reaction to this is going to get flamed and don't care because I don't really pretty much off of all the stuff after someone told me they hope a semi-truck hits my parents this weekend on the internet. So, but if you're tired of Julius Randle, I get it. And if you're tired of Jaden McDaniels, I don't get it, but whatever. But those same people want Rob Dillingham freed. Where's that coming? You're going to get Coby White and Ant and Dante DiVincenzo and find minutes for Rob Dillingham? What about Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who might be the best player through the first? I mean, he's tapered down a little bit, but he was their most valuable player, it seemed like, for the first chapter of the season. So that just seems truly, which I do think right now this is like a Titanic situation in terms of every level of the organization is dysfunctional again, and no one knows what to do because we're all just waiting for this ownership bubble to burst. And it'll then, I think, at least alleviate issues at the top, which will then trickle down to being able to make decisions. I don't think Chris Finch is going to
everything feels frozen right now.
Chris Finch isn't getting fired until arbitration settled. That's reporting. So take it or leave it. Like, they're not going to make
Are you saying he's going to be fired once it gets
settled?
settled?
No, I'm saying that like no one can figure out anything right now because they don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
So again, if you're tired of Jaden McDaniels, who is now the 72nd most highest paid player in the league, and you don't think he's producing, which I think he's been playing better because they've just kind of figured out that maybe he is a 4 now in the way the league has evolved again, and spacing him in the corner, he can't shoot. And like, I'm the president of the fan club, and it's like, hey man, it might just be 34%, but if you can get him to crash and cut and offensive rebound, like he had a couple last night where it's just like, yeah, you're 6'10", Steph's 6'6" or 5. Just go get the rebound, and he did it, and he dunked it. But if you're gonna do that to then go get another combo guard. After you watched last night, I mean, who was the best player on the Timberwolves last night by a mile? Dante DiVincenzo.
DiVincenzo has been fully unlocked. This has been a renaissance for Dante DiVincenzo the last 3 weeks. Yes.
So if you go get another guard, like what does that do for Rob Dillingham, who you paid these assets and needs to get minutes? Like that is a thing that I am like so like vehemently against the coaching staff, is that when he comes back, he didn't look great in his G League stint, but I don't really care because I thought his playmaking was really good. He just kind of didn't make shots, which you watch enough of his college tape, or it's like, dude, he's a shot maker. Like, he's going to be fine. But he would inject life into this team the same way, in my opinion, Dante's injected life, because they just kind of bust their bleep, like they just try hard and do things. So that trade just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, because what you're saying is, okay, we're going to get rid of an undersized power forward who doesn't really stretch the floor for an undersized power forward who doesn't really stretch the floor and has hit, like he's in control this summer. Like he gets to decide if he's picking up the player option. And then we're just going to basically swap Jaden for Coby White, who is not a defensive player. And you don't know what's going to happen with Nickeil this summer. So like, are you cool if your backcourt is, I don't know, Coby White and Ant and then Dante? And then like, again, where does Rob fit in? So
you'd be shipping out a lot of potential defense for more electric scoring. I'm all for, hey, feed the ideas, because
I'm with that.
I think a trade's coming. I think something's going to happen.
I do too.
Tim Connelly's always just kind of lurking in the weeds, but to the point of this trade, and again, I don't expect everyone on the author of the story is ESPN insiders, so I don't even know how many of them were there. Were they all just gathered around the trade machine? By the way, the inventor of the trade machine has been helping to run the Timberwolves the last few years, so there's a lot of tentacles here. But one of the main reasons to trade Julius Randle, I think, if you polled fans, they would say like lack of basketball awareness. Bull in a china shop, doesn't play defense. But like maybe the biggest slice of the pie chart is to not allow him with his player option to dictate what the Wolves do as a franchise this summer, which is like a huge pivot point for the next 3 to 5 years. And you and Dane busted out the spreadsheet on the podcast last week, which I love. And it's really like, it comes down to this. If you don't trade Julius Randle in the next 3 weeks, he overwhelmingly has power over whether you can bring back both Naz Reid and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Also, even if let's say you take that risk and you say, well, I guess, okay, he opted in. Man, we thought he was going to make a different decision, but okay, Naz, we're going to say goodbye to Nickeil. Naz might look at you and say, I want to play 30 minutes and start. Mm-hmm. So there's like the next 3 weeks are so huge for the future of this franchise. And I would rather them, like the run to the Western Conference Finals was amazing last year. And I know that we're going to debate forever the hypothetical of like, what if they had just kept Cat? I remain in the camp of they weren't going to win a championship with Cat. They were going to be stuck financially and second apron this coming summer anyways. Like, I would rather them flush last year, admit that this season is not a championship season. Maybe it would have been if you kept Cat. I don't think so. And find out what the hell you have in some of these younger players. And I know Dillingham's been out with an ankle, but the first thing I thought of with this trade proposal, I'm kind of a Coby White stan too, so I will greatly admit that. He's a super fun player. Yep. He torches the Wolves sometimes. But the first thing I thought of is, boy, if I had to make a decision like this, I'd love to know a little bit more about what I have in Rob Dillingham on January 16th, 40 games into his rookie season. I thought he was going to play more, and the injury has kind of prevented that, but it'd be nice to know more about what you have in some of these young players before you make franchise-altering decisions.
Yeah, and I just come back to no one wants to talk about it because it's the hardest thing to figure out because we're all just sitting here waiting, but I'm just going to continue, and I think you can back me up on this because you kind of know what I'm talking about. The ownership thing to me is just hangs over everything.
It does.
Because I believe I have this, that Chris Finch was shocked by the Karl Anthony-Towns trade. Like, he had just a couple weeks earlier done the whole, I said this before, like the 4-part, 2-hour meeting with Britt Robson where he outlined his strategy on how to run it back and try to level this thing up. A team that went to the Western Conference Finals, had the best defense, but offensively just couldn't figure it out. And if that's true, like if he was blown away by like, oh my God, I don't have my starting power forward, now I got to make this work. That's where I give Finch some leeway, which people don't want to do. I mean, because fire Finch right now is like the new fake news. It's just what people say when they're frustrated and whatever. I don't care who coaches my team. I just want them to win games. But the messaging in general was also, remember in October, and I was like, hey, it's okay to take a step back, I think. I know that's not fun. I know you can't take a step back and also raise the price of hot dogs at Target Center. But let's just try to get a better picture of everyone in this organization, because by trading Karl Anthony-Towns for Julius Randle, I still side with you. Long term, I think this is going to create flexibility that they need. But that trade, there's no one, and I don't think you and I thought this either, and if we did, hand up, I'm wrong, that thought they were a better team at Media Day by just trading a former All-NBA guy who actually figured it out with Rudy for another former All-NBA Kentucky big that hasn't always led to winning. So, like, no one really thought, wow, Monday morning, this team is better. But why not just embrace that then? From, like, an organizational standpoint, why not just say, like, hey, we sniffed the mountaintop, but the CBA and CJ McCollum and Grant Williams, they really put us in a pickle. We got to take one step back so that long-term we can take 3 steps forward. Again, you can't say that because you're trying to raise ticket prices. You're trying to get people in the building and have them be interested. But that would have been, now in hindsight, the best move. Just take a gap year, let some of the young guys play, because you traded Karl, you got worse short-term, Mike gets older, Rudy gets older. Like, the actions of the organization don't align. And that is why I think it is so toxic to the point where, like, I'm not kidding. Okay, I don't, like, there's people just wishing death upon the people covering the team.
Fans are very stressed. Fans are very
it's crazy. But they're not wrong for being frustrated, but it's like, what John Krasinski's just telling you what he sees and knows. But he also is like, wait, so you made a move to have your books easier to manage a year from now, 2 years from now. I mean, Karl Anthony-Towns is the 9th highest paid player in the league. And it's only going to, maximize as that contract gets bigger. Yes, the salary cap is going to go up and stuff, but maybe they just thought we need relief. Then just embrace that. Embrace letting the kid from Kentucky, the 19-year-old, start.
And also, dude, like part of, as I was digesting the trade, back 3 months ago, whatever, part of the equation was, okay, like you've taken a step back from the expectations of this linear climb up to the top of the mountain. Mm-hmm. I do think there was a pure basketball trade aspect to it because and as we've seen now, finally,
he's the second best player on the team. Second best player on the team.
DiVincenzo and Ant there is a magic there. And now neither one of them is a true point guard, so there's a little sloppiness sometimes. But man, like when those guys are bouncing off each other, and no one's playing harder right now than DiVincenzo, I see, like in terms of what do they have, that component could be magic for the next 2 or 3 years if you get the rest of it right. So I see that was a basketball trade component of it. Then there's the financial trade too, but the big thing was Naz Reid, I thought this is gonna elevate him now to either starting or playing the 30 to 32 minutes that he probably deserves, so you can find out, is he that type of a minutes load guy? And the fact that you're sitting here, you had full permission after you made that trade to just like, okay, let's see what we have here with the rest of this. We said goodbye to this huge centerpiece, and you're literally playing 8 guys every night still,
right?
And one of them is 37. And Rudy Gobert is 32 and showing major signs of decline too. I mean, I tweeted out his rebounding rate has crashed through the floor, and Dane added some context to it too, that it's even worse when you dig into like first 20 games, second 20 games. But at this point, find out what you have for the next 40 games so that you can, and some of this is like you have to make decisions in the next 3 weeks. But make this a 3 to 5 year window and make it worthwhile. But if you get to the end of the year and you have no idea what Terrence Shannon Jr. is, either you made a terrible draft pick or you mismanaged the entire season and wasted everyone's time, right?
We all do, Minnesota Mike. What Mike Conley did to unlock Rudy Gobert, that was, again, I think everyone at least agrees that trade, D'Lo for Na and Mike, was the greatest trade in Timberwolves franchise history. Not a lot of good trades on that list, so we're kind of just picking one of the 2 good ones. But I would have traded Mike Conley the day after they traded Karl Anthony-Towns, because it at least aligns with a concept of, well, we drafted a 19-year-old point guard. We are getting worse short-term on the court. And if we're opening up flexibility down the road, because this is still, and I believe this core competency, it's all about Ant at 26. It's all about Ant at 27, the Tatum year, the Luka year, the SGA. Like that is factual, that is when you're in your peak. Well, Mike's not even going to be in the league when Ant's 27.
Yeah. Maybe he'll take over for Finch after Finch gets fired.
Yeah, maybe. You know what I mean? And then he can always, I was thinking about this too, like the Finch thing, because people just think I'm so pro Finch. I'm more just pro finding the right people to blame. So after that Memphis loss, right? Like that was a horrible loss, because in reality, I thought they should have won that game by double digits. Yeah. And I've stayed sober for dry January, Phil, but I did a little X on Sunday night on the app and started tweeting out videos of, like Ant hasn't crossed half court. There's 15 seconds left on the shot clock. Whose fault is that? Julius Randle is isolating against the defensive player of the year. Probably Finch's fault that he was out there. Like last night again, I think Julius Randle last night in that Warriors game, Phil, that was the quickest Julius Randle has been subbed out in the first quarter all season long. Mm-hmm. Right? It was like 4 minutes in, like, all right, Nas. And then who did they close with? Nas. That is, good. But I'm just trying to analogize this idea of every time they keep kind of changing things on the fly and there's not a lot of stability. Like if you were doing Purple Daily today and the Twins showing Flagrant Howls, right? And you're like, it's going to be Judd and then Dex and then Kyle. But it was chat roulette where you came on Flagrant Howls and all of a sudden it's just this random person. Like, I think that's some of the stuff going on with this team that Chris Finch is like, okay, here's my 10-step plan to make the 2 bigs work in year 3. And then it's like, actually, you don't get that guy. But you got to start practice on Monday and you get this other guy and he completely doesn't fit pretty much any other player on the team. Like, that's type of stuff that I'm trying to dissect. I'm not just going to blame that guy or that guy. I think organizationally, nothing makes sense right now because long-term, Dane gets it. I mean, Dane has the whole spreadsheet. Long-term, you can sign Naz and you can sign Nikhil, who are 25 and 26 and have contributed to winning long-term. But you can't do it if Julius Randle picks up his player option this summer. So then Julius Randle shouldn't be on the team 3 weeks from now.
But then isn't it, as we all wring our hands every game over this, like, oh God, they gotta get him on here. Isn't it possible? And you tell me. I mean, you're plugged in. I am too. I feel like we have different waves of information, but is it likely that Tim Connelly, as I've been speculating for the last 3 months, that the first trade is A to B, and Dante DiVincenzo is, if this was like a one-stop flight, DiVincenzo's getting off the plane. He's staying in Minnesota for the next 3 years. He's definitely part of this thing.
Right.
And that first-round pick is getting off the plane. That's staying here. Julius, why don't you stay on the plane? We're actually going to send you to the next stop. We don't know what that next stop is. I think Tim Connelly has had that next stop in his mind, or 2 or 3 options, the entire time. And while we sit here and wring our hands, he's probably going to be on the phone the next 3 weeks, just maximizing whatever. Like, maybe I'm just putting too much. I think he's going to do the same thing he did with D'Lo 2 years ago, where it's like, oh man, you got to get you got to get this guy off the team. It's toxic. But how are they going to ever get anything for him? Who's ever going to want to trade for D'Lo? And then, like, boom, out of nowhere, wait a second, they got Mike Conley and, as we found out later, this really good Nickeil Alexander-Walker guy. Who's to say that that's not just sitting there ready to be fired off in 2 weeks, and we're all just pointlessly, like, panicking over this situation?
I mean, God, I hope so, because that's the only thing I have right now to. And again, this sounds like it's so anti-Julius Randle.
Yeah, because he's actually like, yeah, I get it. He's an easy scapegoat.
He just doesn't, in my mind. I'm just trying to figure out, like,
he's 30, dude. Like, he's not part of the 5-year arc.
But like, what matters? Like, let's just really rip the band. What matters right now with the Minnesota Timberwolves? Because I don't think it's the coach, and I don't even know if it's like anyone in the front. It's all about just surrounding Anthony Edwards, who has clearly shown, while still some maturity that he needs to do, he's admitting it, right? Like, hey, you know what? Probably shouldn't flip off the officials in a game that's a 1-point game, right? But he's also forced at times to go 1-on-4 because the spacing is terrible around him. And like, he's got some growing up to do. He's trying. I think this is all the chapter of Ant taking that next step to be the next, SGA. But I think if the ownership thing, again, not to just bang my head over this, but it's so Minnesota Timberwolves that nothing can be normal. I think if ownership would have transitioned in March 2024, Tim Connelly would have signed an extension in the summer of 2024. And honestly, I don't think they would have traded Karl 2 days before the media did. They might have still traded him in season. They might have still traded him before February 6th. They might have let it leak out into the summer. But I will say, despite missing Karl and being one of the guys that's like, man, would he fix a lot of this stuff? I think Mike would have regressed no matter what. Do you agree? Like, I think Mike Conley might just finally have hit a cliff.
It's always been, once guys get to be guards, sometimes can carry it out, but like you saw it with Kyle Lowry, you've seen it a little bit with Chris Paul. Like, once you get to be 36, all bets are off at that position. Now, it's funny because Ray Allen was a different style player, but one thing that has continued, he can still knock a corner 3 down and sit out there and be a threat.
Which is what the play was designed in that 6 seconds left in the Memphis game.
Right. DDV.
Call a timeout, run a play. Timeout called, run a play. Oh, just kidding. Ant went rogue. And he's just going to take the ball at the top of the key. So, but like if Karl's here, I still think they're better. They're a better basketball team right now if Karl Anthony-Towns is on the team.
Yeah, because it would be a continuation over,
But I think Mike regresses no matter what. And what Dane and you have showed today in your little back and forth, like a friendly back and forth, I think Rudy probably regresses with or without Karl on the team. Mm-hmm. So then the fear is, maybe this was something that came up in September in Tim Connelly's brain. Okay, if these guys both regress and we keep Karl and he gets hurt again, right? Because the surgery that he had was kind of one of those ones, and correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it like the get you out there sooner type knee surgery that could have more long-term effects? Again, I love Karl. I'm more of a Karl guy than
This is all fair, dude.
But it's like, what if then all of a sudden these two old guys regress and you haven't done anything to get flexibility? I think that leads to the Ant trade demand.
And wow.
I think that leads to like, okay, not only are we bleep now, we're bleeped later.
Yeah.
And
well, dude, if
you know what I mean?
Think the conundrum that they have with Julius's contract is even a bigger conundrum with Cat's contract. And Cat is a better player than Julius, and obviously has like built the chemistry, and so I will grant you that they established themselves as a top Western Conference contender with the Cat iteration of this thing. But so Conley regression, Gobert regression, they were not going to be the same team as they were last year. Maybe they're like a better, more fun team to watch than what we're watching right now. But like DiVincenzo wouldn't have been on that team. And he's been carrying this thing for the last, maybe 10 games. So you take him off too. And I just think people have like a Pollyanna misperception of what this team was going to be if they just ran it back. Running it back was the easy thing to do, and nobody would have criticized. But people thought, oh, well, if you just run it back, then the inevitable next step is going to happen, and they're going to go to the NBA Finals, and then boom. But the regressions that you're talking about would have prevented that from happening. And then what happens is you get to the summer, and you're sitting here with Nikhil and Naz both up for unrestricted free agency, but you're still in the second apron. Well, just trade Rudy then at that point. Okay, well, you're not getting Dante DiVincenzo for Rudy. You got him for Cat because Cat's more valuable. He's a better player. So then you're dealing with, okay, do we continue running forward with Cat, Ant, and a depleted roster because we're losing Naz and Nikhil? I mean, people don't want to hear this, but they just like, well, there's a mistake. He's an idiot. No, he's looking at the arc of 3 to 5 years and how to, like you said, land the plane or take the plane off, I guess, when Ant hits his prime 25, 26, 27.
I'm not telling you how to think or how to cheer or how to fan. I'm not. Because we're all in. I mean, again, like a lot of times people don't like me. It's like, you're a fan. Okay, well, then I'm going to be the exact same emotional response to this as you are. It's disingenuous to just think that this team would have been another Western Conference Finals candidate had they have ran it back again. Because we have experience, I've said this before, that Portland Trailblazers team with Dame and the goodbye wave, and when they made that little run and they beat, and then they got swept by the Warriors in a very non-competitive Western Conference Finals, they leaned into it again that year, and what eventually happened? Their books were cooked, they ran out of some picks, and they had to get rid of Damian Lillard for one of the worst trade packages ever. You got to watch, if you don't like watching the Minnesota Timberwolves effort, watch 12 minutes of DeAndre Ayton right now, because he is the worst basketball player in the league right now. I digress. The Hawks kind of had that, right? When Trae Young waved goodbye to everyone in the Knicks, they kind of leaned into it, like, let's go get DeJounte Murray, let's level this thing up, and it didn't work, and now they're better because they kind of reset their books and reset everything and surrounded their star player, Trae Young, like Anthony Edwards, with guys who fit more. But again, I'm not trying to like bleep on people that wanted to see this run back. My concern is, or my frustration is growing to the fact of, on January 16th, knowing what we know now, and this team being what, 21 and 20, 20 and 20, 500 basketball club,
21.
It would have just made, I mean, do you disagree? It would have made way more sense in hindsight at 20 and 20 to also trade Mike, maybe not extend Rudy, and start Rob Dillingham from day one. Because what's the worst case scenario?
It feels like they were almost trying to have their cake and eat it too a little bit.
Bingo.
Right?
Bingo.
And you know what's
They're
funny?
They're trying to thread the two timeline thing that last night's opponent that was apparently light years ahead has now bleeped up 3 draft picks. Wiseman over LaMelo, Kuminga over, I think it was Mo Wagner, or like they didn't take Sengun. They're trying to have their cake and eat it too. And it might eventually lead to some really good cake. But that's my frustration, is like, okay, we kind of supported the financial decision because I get it. And Dane showed it the other day. It's like, if you keep Julius Randle, you're going to lose Naz or Nikhil. Like, it's almost a fact. But you said you traded Karl to be able to keep Naz and Nikhil.
Yeah.
So
But that's why I'm only going to...
I'll give you till February 6th. Yep.
Phil, you're defending Tim Connelly. After February 6th, when new information comes in, okay, then we can have a more fully formed opinion. But here's the crazy thing about having your cake and eating it too, as we criticize this thing. Despite all of this, and even we didn't even get to, like, Anthony Edwards talked about the two biggest problems on the team right now are lack of energy to start games and rebounding. And like Rudy to not grab that rebound at the end, they had a chance to win that game still down, but it would have been their first 24-plus point comeback since 1998 in the early part of the KG era. But so despite all of this stuff, if they would have just closed out Memphis, they'd be 3 games back of the 3 seed right now in the Western Conference, which is like, it kind of shows you there's a lot of teams in the West that are also trying to navigate Denver, these new roster construction parameters, and are stumbling their way around. And Memphis, this is where I was at that game on Saturday night. Dude, Memphis, the contrast between what Memphis is doing with their roster and their young players versus the Timberwolves is jarring. Memphis played an 11-man rotation at Target Center on Saturday night. They've got Zach Edey, a rookie, out there playing 20, 25 minutes, grabbing huge offensive rebounds over Rudy Gobert and shooting threes. Like, he knocked down a couple of threes. And then the second round, the early second round pick, that he's like 6'7" wing guy. Yeah, Jalen Wells, right? Mm-hmm. He has started 35 games for the Grizzlies this year, and he clamped Ant up and down for 2 hours in that game, frustrated Ant. And the Grizzlies have said, yeah, we're going to play our young, that second round dude who flashed in training camp, we're going to start him. Mm-hmm. And if you're the Wolves act like, with how hard it is to break the 8-man rotation, like they are the 1992 Chicago Bulls or something. And, it's like, we got to play Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant 40 minutes every night. Sorry, guys. It's ridiculous.
And this is something you and I have talked about offline, but it's not. I don't believe Chris Finch should be doing what he's doing. Like, I believe that some of these guys should be given more opportunity. I just firmly believe that. Mr. Pro Finch is like, hey man, you have to expand the rotation. At least give some, or use the minutes as the most verbal form of punishment, right? But I wonder if he's like, we just don't have a ton of hoops IQ out there. How do I throw younger players into what is already we joked about that Pelicans game the other night, about a week ago, when they kind of had it wrapped up, but they just had to run the ball to kill the clock. Yeah. And what did they do? They threw an half-court alley-oop to Ant, and then the next possession, Ant tried to go between the legs, behind the back, and split 2 defenders, when all you have to do is hold the ball and get fouled. So again, I'm not. Yeah. There's difference between, and let's clear this one up in 2025. There's a difference between facts and excuses. The fact is that Julius Randle and Ant made 2 turnovers in the Pelicans game that almost cost them. The excuse would be, well, then because those guys can't figure it out, I'm not going to let the other guys figure it out. But like Terrence Shannon Jr. is 24. Like, he's played in a lot of basketball games. I get like Josh Minot, who hasn't, or even Rob Dillingham, who was 19. But like, you don't think Terrence Shannon Jr. could just maybe bring some basketball IQ to this mix? So
also another thing too is like, on Jaden, if they decide, because right now one of your biggest issues offense, because you're sitting you're bottom third of the league offensive net rating still, you're like 20th or whatever. Your starting lineup contains 2 dudes in Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert that are not good offensive players, or not efficient, high volume offensive players. Rudy is just, he's always been one of the worst offensive bags in the league, but his defense and rebounding and shot blocking and all these things have always made up for it. And now those things are regressing, and it makes you nervous. On Jaden, I think you could live with Jaden's lack of offense and lack of shooting if he wasn't playing a huge chunk of his minutes with Rudy. And then you throw Julius out. Julius actually does have an offensive bag, but you want to talk about like a guy that just decides he's a my turn basketball guy, where last night there was moments in that game where everything's flowing. Dante DiVincenzo is flying up and down. People need to match his energy more, by the way. If the Wolves matched his energy more, they'd have like 5 more wins this season.
Correct.
But everything's flying around and the ball is moving, and then all of a sudden Julius gets the ball for the first time in 3 possessions and decides, my turn to attack one-on-one. And it's like, I don't know, man. I guess my to bring this full circle on Jaden, if you decided, hey, we just need some more offense. Like the Clamps defense is not overriding the lack of offense on this team, and we have Rudy under contract for 3 years. He's not really tradable. We think we can get something for Jaden, in part because Josh Minott is on the come. And it'd be nice to know what you have in Terrence Shannon Jr. so you could make a decision on Jaden McDaniels, like some of the other dudes that might play wing for you over the next 3 years. So, anyways,
but I just want to, and I think the title of this should be some trade speculation because it is a reckless speculation Thursday. That's a tongue twister. But also, I really
Reckless speculation.
What you just said, I'm just trying to highlight things that could exist, right? So maybe you are tired of Jaden McDaniels, $23 million this year, makes as much as Mikal Bridges. Maybe you're like, he needs to go because Josh Minott, Terrence Shannon Jr. But you follow the team, Phil, for as long as they've existed. What if that's the final domino for Ant to be like, you already traded away my brother Karl, and now you traded away my best friend on the team? Because I'm just asking a question. Like, I wake up most days thinking about what I got to do today and a 6-month plan. So I get that. I'm not if trading Jaden is the answer to unlock some other stuff, that's fine. But we keep talking about these pulling of levers. Every lever you pull, every decision you make is going to have ramifications. Trading Karl Anthony-Towns made you a worse basketball team. But maybe down the road, the flexibility will work out and you can retain some of the guys that Ant plays well with. Anthony Edwards plays good basketball with Nikhil and Naz, and clearly Dante, who is the second best player on the team. So again, I'm just asking the questions because this organization has only thought about the day of for so many years and has gone through so many GMs and coaches, and that's not proven to be successful. So while I think Finch is having his worst year ever, and if you want him let go or replaced, I would just like to see him given an opportunity to coach a bunch of guys who make sense. And Julius Randle doesn't make any sense. Now, he's clearly aligned himself to support Julius. They've said last week they both were like super complimentary of one another. If that's the hill he wants to die on, then that's a bummer. I don't know. But like at least figure out your order of operations of who you're going to get rid of first to see if the other things work. Because it seems like everyone on the team right now has regressed. Everyone. And is that because of the coach? Possibly. Or is it because of a player or a style of play that has never really translated to winning? Because the New York Knicks are pretty good right now, and their best moments last year were without Julius Randle on the team.
And with Dante DiVincenzo down the stretch. Yeah.
Let's do the Motor City Minute. Let's pick
Dude,
it up.
The Motor City Minute. Yeah, there's plenty more to talk about between now and the trade deadline, and we will. But the Motor City Minute here, our Detroit Pistons, and if you're following along at home and maybe don't know what we're talking about, the Timberwolves have the rights to the Detroit Pistons' upcoming first-round pick, which is top 13 protected, right?
Yep.
So basically, we need the Pistons to be as good as possible this year, so that pick can convey. You want the Pistons to be picking like 20th overall, so that the Wolves can get that pick, or 15th or whatever, right? Well, good news. After starting 11-17. The Detroit Pistons are now 21-19, rattling off 10 wins in 12 games, climbing their way up the Eastern Conference standings. Right now, if the playoffs started today, the Pistons would host the Hawks in the 7-8 seed play-in game, but they're just a half game back of the 6 seed and just a game and a half back of hosting a first-round playoff series with home court against the Milwaukee Bucks would be bumped down, and so they would be the 5 seed. So, yeah, dude, this is getting real here with this pick potentially conveying for the Timberwolves.
How crazy is this? According to Tankathon this morning, because of the Rudy Gobert trade and the Karl Anthony-Towns trade, the Minnesota Timberwolves are slated to give the Utah Jazz the 15th pick in this upcoming 2025 NBA draft. They're also slated to receive the 15th pick from the Detroit Pistons in a 3-way tie. So they're going to give up a pick in the mid-teens, and they're likely going to get one. It does seem like the Pistons will probably be buyers at the trade deadline. I wonder if they could use a power forward. So they're probably going to get in, and now that opens up a whole other can of worms Dane kind of talked about this last week. Do you use that pick, which is a movable asset? Like, just because you don't know who gets it yet, you can trade that pick along with players. Do you move that to sweeten a deal to unload a Julius Randle? And then all you get back is Donte DiVincenzo for your former, 9-year, probably retires jersey, Karl Anthony-Towns?
Well,
or do you just say the salary cap stuff, the CBA, the second apron is so nasty, we need to get more young players in here that will fit Ant's timeline? And then if you do that, everyone in the fan base is saying, okay, well then are they going to play? Right?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Ideally, you'd be able to flip Julius, and maybe there's something else. Although you can't. One of the problems is you wouldn't be able to aggregate Julius plus another player for a bigger contract because you're a second apron team. You could flip Julius and like a first for maybe 2 lesser contracts, I believe. But your question about what you would do with that first round pick, but then like, would you only wind up with DiVincenzo out of the Cat trade, and how would you feel about that? Let me ask you this, Kyle and Wolves fans. For the next 3 seasons, would you rather have on this Timberwolves team Karl Anthony-Towns or Donte DiVincenzo? Take away salaries. Salaries.
That's bait. No, I don't know. Actually, I'm going to answer the question. And you can't take it, because if you take away salaries.
Well, it's obvious it's DiVincenzo because he makes a fifth of what Cat makes.
I would say if you take away salaries, it's Karl Anthony-Towns. There's not a single person that can say otherwise.
Is it? Dude, he's 30. He's going to be 30. He's got a bum knee. That's a 7-footer turning 30 years old. Next 3 years.
You're one of my guys. I just if you're just saying what player do you want on the team, and maybe it's closer than I think, because again, I might be selling shares of other players so I can try to accumulate more of DDV stock. But it doesn't matter because it's a salary cap league, Phil, right? It's like, it's not baseball. This isn't the Twins. You do have to have a spreadsheet like Dane creates. So
yeah. So I mean, if obviously we put the salaries back in, and DiVincenzo makes like 12 million or 10, and Cat's going to go from 50 up to 60 in the next 3 years.
I keep saying,
and it keeps you below the second apron. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's DiVincenzo in that regard.
I keep saying that Jaden McDaniels is the 72nd highest paid player this season. Do you just have a guess where Donte DiVincenzo? And I said Karl Anthony-Towns is the 9th highest paid player in the league this season. Jaden McDaniels 72nd in the league. Do you know where Donte DiVincenzo is?
My only reference for answering this question is that I did look up where Julius ranked on this list a couple days ago, and I didn't see anything below him. But Julius at 30-ish, like 29, 30-ish, or 33, is like the 44th highest paid player. So DiVincenzo is definitely outside the top 100. Is it 120?
146th highest paid player in the league. And I think his next 2 years, Jace Frederick had tweeted this out. I think it's like 10 million this year, 11 million next year, and then 12 million the year after that. So I don't know if you can just get Karl. It's 11.5 this year, 11.9, and then 12.3. I don't know if you can just get Donte DiVincenzo and flexibility for Karl. And by that, I mean you're using the pick to get rid of Randle. But if you were to tell me that it guaranteed that like Nas signs an extension and Nikhil signs an extension, it sucks. And I get the vitriol from fans because this is stupid. The CBA is really bad. Like, this is affecting like everyone in the league, like the Warriors, the Clippers, all these teams, except for the Celtics, I guess. But if you told me that like the 2 nights before media day, the Minnesota Timberwolves traded Karl Anthony-Towns for Donte DiVincenzo and 4 more years of Nas and Nikhil, I think everyone would have a better perspective of this.
Correct. That's the way to look at this. The way to look at this.
But, and I agree with you, the 2 cake thing or the 2 timeline thing, that's where I think the organization is at right now, where they're trying to thread like, well, yeah, but we could have, cheesecake and carrot cake. It's like, no. You promised us long-term carrot cake back in late September, and now we don't even know what is your favorite cake, by the way, just quickly.
I'm more of a pie guy than a cake guy, but as a kid, I was always the Dairy Queen ice cream cakes where you can like customize the message,
That is the correct answer. Ice cream
Happy
cake.
4-year anniversary of the purchase agreement between A-Rod, Laurie, and, Glenn Taylor. You could write that on there.
We joke, but I actually just think this is like the most toxic it's been since I started covering the team. Because at least back in the old days, 8 years ago, there was no expectations. So you're just kind of like, like another failed lottery pick, or like we win 30 games. I really do. This isn't optimism. I think a light is at the end of the tunnel because I believe that this all starts from the top and moves down, not the other way around. So we got to get the ownership thing figured out, and then that
got to make sure Glenn retains ownership. And
if just on that hypothetical, quick, if you want to do reckless speculation.
Oh man, here I'll give you some cover here. There you go.
I don't want to say it. Dookie's taught me enough about saying things. If Glenn Taylor were to win arbitration, I don't think they'd trade Julius Randle by the February 6th. Because I don't know if Tim Connelly's here long term.
Arbitration might not, because
we don't know.
Arbitration, there's a 30-day window there that arbitration could actually drag past the trade deadline.
I think they need to know who the owners are so that the president of the team can be like, I'm either going to be here or I'm not going to be here. And if I'm going to be here, this is what I want the org to look like. And if I'm going to be the next Scott Layden and bounce in the summer, then like, here's your team. Go enjoy the play-in. So fascinating times. But I'm also, too, just to try to spin it, I mean, this is mainly just for myself, but I thought they blew it against the Grizzlies. I thought they blew it. I don't think they should have closed with those 5, and then I wouldn't be bemoaning the fact of, like, it's probably not Julius Randle's fault that with 15 seconds left on the shot clock, he has no one even trying to do anything, and his star player is beyond half court. And he's like, I guess I got to score. So that's on Finch. Like, just don't even have him in that situation. Then Julius doesn't get made fun of, and Naz Reid is trying to isolate on someone. Like, that was them. But, our guy Jake Painting, who does a great job at Howls and Growls, even he said it last night, it's like, I thought Finch coached a really good game. Like, at some point, when Gary Payton's kid is at the line, who is not a good free throw shooter, and he makes the first one, and you have Rudy Gobert, who just signed a contract extension, boxing out. Can you believe that the guy that got that rebound to seal the deal was Mr. Rebound himself, Andrew Wiggins?
Yeah, how about
that? Like, there was no different change there of like, well, you should have subbed him. No. Rudy Gobert should have got the rebound.
That's literally why he exists on this team, is to rim protect and be the heart of the defense.
We are so back.
Man. Anyways, they're about to get revenge on the Knicks tomorrow night, and then everything's going to be back to good here. We're going to get to a random wolf of the week. I do want to say hello to Element Hotel in the North Loop near Target Center. This is a Marriott Bonvoy hotel for those of you who have points programs, but just down the street from Target Center, right on the light rail, super walkable to some of the best Minneapolis downtown restaurants, popular bars. There's a parking garage, only $25 a day. With in-and-out privileges. So bright natural lighting, city views, just one of the best hotels you're going to find in one of the best cities in America. Free breakfast, too. Breakfast tacos, avocado toast, sweet potato hash, other breakfast offerings. Element Hotel, a great place if you've got a friend gathering, people coming in from out of town. Maybe you're a Wolves fan who lives out of town looking to come to a game. Get a 15% room rate discount by going to scorenorth.com/element. That's scorenorth.com/element for a 15% room rate discount. Also, North American Banking Company helping to power this Timberwolves lifestyle podcast. So they opened in 1998, serving the Twin Cities communities, now with 6 locations: Maple Grove, Roseville, Shoreview, Hastings, Woodbury, and then 50th in France. And in getting to know the team at North American Banking Company over the last couple of years, I noticed a few things: friendly, knowledgeable people, face-to-face relationships. They took the time to learn about me, my wife, family, future needs, safety and security of accounts, which is highly important. Also, cutting-edge online tools as well. So if you're looking for a better and even local banking experience, personal relationships, go to nabankco.com/Mackey to learn more. That's nabankco.com/Mackey. All right, he is producer extraordinaire Ross Brendel, and he leads us through the random wolf of the week. Kyle with a 4-2 lead this season. correctly guessing Christian Laettner last week. Before that, it was Greg Monroe. So, Ross, we'll see what the random Wolf algorithm generator comes up with today here.
Yeah, and just a reminder to everybody that there are a heat check guess after my first clue,
right,
which doesn't count against your amount of guesses, which is 3. If you guess 3 times and fail, the other person is the winner. But by the way, we'll still play it out because people need to know all the clues that I
You
spent
work
like
so hard.
like 4.5 minutes on going through Basketball Reference, Wikipedia, the dark web.
The dark
Sometimes
web
even-
of random wolves. Yeah.
Sometimes even following these players around and they don't even know it as I'm just trying to unearth random facts.
The dark web.
Dark web
where,
is what Twitter is now.
man, that's where you find the Brian Cardinal facts in there. The Michael Doliak 90s Wolves.
Brian Cardinal, I think, came out of the womb bald. I believe he was.
Yeah,
already
he was bald as a
receding.
freshman at Purdue, 100%.
Yeah, him and Evan
Pretty
Eschmeyer.
right.
I remember Evan Eschmeyer at Northwestern just dominating the Gophers.
We should do a
boys-
top
He was
5. We
39.
should do a Mount Rushmore of bald people in sports.
Like
One day.
naturally bald or
I don't want to get into
not,
the
not like shave
personal
your
lives.
head. Well, Michael Jordan's bald, but like
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
okay. I was just, well, now you got me in my feelings, but I was just thinking like Stone Cold Steve Austin,
Yeah.
Scott Van Pelt. I don't know, I'll think of a couple more.
Or what about top 5 players that refuse to admit that they're bald?
That's a great one.
I think that's the one where they got like it's like the George
LeBron James.
Costanza,
Carlos
yeah,
Boozer,
LeBron James,
Carlos
yep.
Boozer, Carlos Boozer, Carlos Boozer, Carlos Boozer.
Oh, here we go, boys. Of course, you mentioned it, Phil. The last one was Christian Laettner with Kyle getting that right. So he leads 4-2 here in officially season number 2 of Random Wolf of the Week. Can Phil cut it within 1? I don't know, Jim. Here we go. This Random Wolf of the Week stands 6 feet and 8 inches tall. 6 feet, 8 inches tall.
Heat check guess, huh?
Yeah. What do you got for tallish Timberwolves?
Andrew Wiggins.
Oh, he still has not been used yet. Not correct. That is incorrect.
Wesley Johnson.
The day that Wesley Johnson gets pulled by the algorithm, I'm going to be very upset because you guess him like 70% of the time.
Basically, my heat check right now is Wesley Johnson, Alan Crabb, or Torian Prince. I think Wesley's the tallest, so that's not right. But thanks for a simple no would have done just fine.
Wesley is not correct. We move on to clue number 2. This Random Wolf of the Week's career high in points per game, or points rather in a game, excuse me. Random Wolf's career high for points in a game, just 21.
Oh, boy.
Just 21. This Random Wolf
There's a
of the
Jaden
Week.
McDaniels joke in here, but I am above that. I'm above that.
These clues, I think, tend to help out Phil a bit more, but I think it will also prove that it's in Kyle's wheelhouse as well. This Random Wolf of the Week was born in the 90s. Phil tends to do really well when I drop those because he gets the time frame right.
Yeah, but that's, it's in
90s
the
is
90s
still at-
is like
90s at this
10-year.
point, yeah. You would think that's what? I mean, player,
Well,
I
what's
guess,
the
in
oldest
theory.
you could be? The oldest you could
34
be
probably?
is like Kyle's age, right? So
And Kyle's old.
probably still an active player. Okay.
I appreciate that. No, I don't. I think he's older than that. I have a fun name for later, but I don't think he is.
This Random Wolf of the Week was drafted by the Orlando Magic, but then his draft rights were immediately traded.
Which is like every player in
Correct.
NBA draft
Yeah.
history, right?
Correct. Drafted by the Magic, rights immediately traded. Born in the 90s. Points in a game high of 21, 6 feet, 8 inches tall. That leads me to clue number 5. This Random Wolf of the Week is a product of the SEC. College basketball in the SEC.
6'8".
This Random Wolf of the Week is a second-round NBA draft pick.
See, Kyle's good at the draft, like the kind of the draft positioning.
Yeah, would you tell us, Kyle, one time you can go back and pretty much almost nail every player in the draft for like 10 years? Like when they were drafted?
Yeah, but
I
can't. I struggle installing light bulbs. So like, let's not make it sound like I'm good at stuff. I just have random things that make my persona.
You are an HOA president, so kids, you too can be president. Yes, sir.
Can I? And you do a great job with the clues, but like, are we allowed to? Can I ask a clue?
Yeah,
and see if you
can.
Absolutely.
Yep,
Was he
absolutely.
a McDonald's? Was he a McDonald's All-American, like out of high school?
I love that you're asking this just moments after I close the laptop. I got to double check.
That's okay. You could just say I don't have it in my clues.
I would imagine
It's not in my clues, to tell you the truth, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't.
I feel like a lot of those McDonald's guys don't end up in the second round, even if college doesn't go super well for them. But I don't know. I don't know where you're going with the McDonald's clue. So
Well, I have.
good.
Yeah.
Good.
Well,
good
because
work.
it's a guy that like.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
It's probably more of an overachiever.
Phil, McDonald's All-American in 2017.
There it is.
Okay, good work. I do not believe that's in my clues as we scroll on down.
He was a McDonald's All-American in 2017.
Yes.
Oh,
Born in the 90s.
I mean,
Obviously, that would make sense.
kind of.
Yeah, late,
Under the
very
wire.
late. Very late. This random Wolf of the Week never averaged more than 8.9 points per game in a NBA season. And let me amend that. This random Wolf of the Week has never averaged more than 8.9 points per game in a NBA season. Has never should logically lead you guys to at least one thing.
Well, I mean, yeah, he's unless Kyle is unable to do
I'm just gonna say
basic
the
math.
guess.
I think we can all agree how young this guy is.
I'm just gonna say the guess.
Still playing.
You ever have that thing where like there's just something you gotta get out and you can't move forward? I'm just gonna say a guess. Is it Luke Richard Mamute?
Oh, it is not Luke Richard
Okay, now I can move forward.
So Kyle's got one. I have not guessed yet, right?
Mbaamute.
Also, he's got to be getting up there, right?
He was also balding and I think refused to acknowledge it, wasn't he? I think you could see his receding hairline.
I think the only reason I think he played at Florida, but so I would have fit some of those. Okay, but the 2017 All-American basically is telling you that he's in the league right now.
Here's one for you. This random Wolf of the Week declared for the draft in 2018 after averaging just 5.9 points per game in college. True story. We can look that up afterwards.
Holy cow. Holy cow. This is a wild goose chase.
This random Wolf of the Week, while playing at Minnesota, once recorded 19 rebounds in a game when playing at Houston. What? 19 rebounds in a game when playing at Houston.
There's no way.
I love it when you guys are quiet. This random Wolf of the Week, per the always reliable Wikipedia, has been a vegan since 2020. initially adopting the diet as a 1-month challenge.
This has to be the greatest segment in all podcasting.
Or the worst, but in some ways that actually makes it good.
Oh. No, he's older than that, isn't he?
Say it.
Is it Jared Vanderbilt?
Phil, you are correct. It is Jared Vanderbilt.
He's only 25 still?
Wait,
Oh,
no.
man.
He's 25 per the
Jared
Wikipedia.
Vanderbilt's 25 years old.
That's crazy, dude. So he's like the same age as Terrence Shannon Jr. Jared Vanderbilt.
Oh
So the
my God, he is 25. Hold on. We just Jared Vanderbilt would have played at Kentucky. I do remember him being All-American. The rebounding thing against Houston was the closest I was like, okay, so that was like a guy recently. Jared Vanderbilt's been in the league for like, he's 25?
Since he was 19, right? Yeah,
Six years at this point, 7 years.
Wow.
That might be the wildest stat I've heard in a while. Age is a stat, I think, but that's crazy. I would have. He's been hurt for the Lakers for like 2 years.
Let me pull up the top 100 Timberwolves list, the last iteration.
That is
Where did we have him?
insane.
Okay, we have This is my list. I think this is my list. I had Jared Vanderbilt as the 35th best Timberwolf of all time on the latest iteration.
You know what?
Just ahead of Fred Hoiberg.
Before you fire me and we don't do this pod anymore, someone did bring it up to me the other day because we've done 2 iterations of this and we updated our top 100 earlier this summer. But another ramification of the 11th hour Karl Anthony-Towns trade, Phil, we don't have Dante DiVincenzo on the list.
Yeah, we do have to. Yeah, you're right. So we have to update this.
So hot
Nor
take
do we have Julius Randle.
Yeah, okay. For Dante, quick one. Just where would you throw him right now? Phil and Ross, just like where would
I got it open. I got it open here. So let's see. Wiggins 16, Sam Mitchell 17. Let's stop when we get to one. Christian Laettner, Pooh Richardson, Tony Campbell, Ricky Rubio, Pekovic, D'Lo, Spree, Kyle Anderson, Gorgie, Joe Smith, Tyrone Corbin, Derrick Rose.
And I love Derrick Rose.
Nikhil is right after Derrick. Would you put him above Nikhil?
Derrick Rose is probably a hot take, actually. He had a 50-pointer.
Well, is he above or below Jared Vanderbilt?
Oh, he's above.
Oh, my God.
I'd put him above Gorgie. I'd put him above Gorgie.
Oh, I don't know. Is he above Jared Vanderbilt? Jared Vanderbilt had a moment with this team.
And helped the Wolves get to the playoffs, for sure.
So maybe he's not as high as I
would
thought.
say he's like a fringe top 40 Timberwolf of all time. Dante DiVincenzo.
Okay.
A couple of fun Jared Vanderbilt things to finish. That 5.9 points per game, that is true. He was very injured in college. So I think decided before I get more injured, let's cash in and try. Yeah, let's cash in and try and make some more money. Also, career highlights and awards on Wikipedia, it lists 2 things. The one that Phil mentioned about the McDonald's McDonald's All-American, the one that just cracks me up, and maybe in 10, 15 years we'll think about it more than we currently do. They list his second career highlight, NBA Cup champion 2023.
Damn right.
That's right. Respect it.
Put some respect on that.
Love it. All right. There's your random wolf of the week here. Another festive show. He's Kyle. I'm Phil. And this is a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast. Click that like button and the subscribe button on the Score North YouTube channel and a 5-star rating and a positive review on Apple, Spotify. Thank you, guys.